You're listening to the Play Therapy Podcast with Dr. Brenna Hicks, your source for centered and focused play therapy coaching.
Hi, I'm Dr. Brenna Hicks, the Kid Counselor. This is the Play Therapy Podcast where you get a masterclass in child-centered play therapy and practical support and application for your work with children and their families. In today's episode, we are looking at another theme that is present in the child-centered play therapy approach. And so last week we started this theme unpacking, and we're looking specifically at the power and aggressive themes. So we looked at good versus bad last week, and this week we're diving into aggression and or aggressive victim. And so we're going to look at how those differ. But keep in mind, there's general aggression as a theme, and then there's aggressive victim play. So we'll look at both, but they are very similar, so it's helpful to have them at the same time. So as I mentioned last week, we're going to be looking at the categories of themes and diving into each one. So we are specifically looking at power and aggressive themes, which is essentially themes that are characterized by obviously aggression, but also assertion of power in some form. And this can be directly or indirectly. And there is always some component of aggression, good versus bad, assertion of power, control, all of those types of things within this power and aggressive theme category. So when we're looking at the aggressive victim play, it's really important to understand that this is not the same as good versus bad. So right off the bat, I want that to be a very clear disclaimer. The aggressive victim play is where there is a clear aggressor and a clear victim, but there is no good versus bad. So when you have a child playing out, let's say, a battle, and he's saying, this one is the good team and this one is the bad team, and the bad team is always attacking the good team, and the good team is always the victim of the aggression of the bad team. That is good versus bad play. So the distinction here is that there is an aggressor and a victim, and it is for the sake of the aggressive victim play. For example, the lion might be beating up the tiger because the tiger is mean, or because he deserves it, or it's retribution for something. So there's obviously the part of the play that is aggressive, and then the recipient of the aggression is the victim. This also includes any kind of aggressive content where the child is the aggressor and you are the victim. So if the child shoots you, if the child kills you, if the child hits you, if the child does anything to you, you become the victim, and therefore the aggressive victim play is evident. So what could this potentially mean? If you see this kind of play, the aggressive victim play, what are the implications and what would be the things that you would want to understand and then potentially articulate to parents in consultations? So several options, but the most common are that if the child consistently feels victimized in their life, they will often shift to having ultimate power and control in their play. So it's actually a role reversal. So they feel powerless, they feel out of control, they feel that they are a victim of their life, their circumstances, whatever the scenario may be. So therefore they are taking ultimate power and control as the aggressor. Another option is they might have really strong, angry feelings that they need to have an outlet for. So sometimes angry kids just really need to be aggressive and they want a victim, because we're going to talk about general aggression in a minute. Aggression is different than aggression with a victim. So this one specifically always has a recipient of the aggression, and that could just be that they're very angry and they're trying to channel that anger. Another option is they feel extremely powerless. So as they become an aggressor, they gain a sense of control. And that's similar to the first one that I mentioned. If they feel that they're a victim, they're role reversing, they can also feel powerless and therefore they're role reversing. So both of those apply. And another issue could be that they cannot control their angry feelings. So if they do not have self-regulation, if they do not have the capacity to manage their feelings, sometimes it comes out in this aggressive victim type of play. So I hope that is helpful as far as the why you might see this type of play, because this is one of the most consistent themes that we see within this broad category. There is almost always aggressive play with a recipient and therefore a victim. So it's very important to recognize what this means, and their rationale matters, because if there's any good versus bad, that is good versus bad theme. If there is just generalized aggression without a victim, it's the general aggression. So this one specifically always has a victim. So the guy gets buried and killed, the dolphin gets smothered and put in the coffin, the tiger beats up the lion, the shark attacks the deer. There's always the aggressor and the victim in this kind of play. Okay, so then how do we distinguish that from the general aggression theme, which is similar but different? So the best way to explain this is you see aggressive behavior, but there is no indicated victim. So there is active aggressive behavior. So they are hitting, kicking, biting, throwing, any of that behavior, but there is not specifically any kind of point of the aggression. So I'm not trying to hurt this person. I'm not trying to kill this person. I'm just having this expression of aggression. This also includes the room wreck. And I'm air quoting room wreck when I do that. So the room wreck, where the child just dumps toys all over the floor and just swipes shelves and makes an absolute mess disaster of your playroom, that room wreck is also generalized aggression. So we do talk a little bit in kind of deeper layers of play therapy as mess-making play. So mess-making play is a little bit unique. The generalized aggression has to be room wrecking in anger. So sometimes kids just make messes and it's mess-making play. That is unique and distinct. We'll talk about that later. This is specifically, they are dumping things and wrecking things in anger. So any kind of play that aligns with that would be the generalized aggression. So what can that mean for the child? What would we explain to parents about that theme and why that's significant? As a general rule, if kids don't really know why they're angry, but they're angry, you will typically see generalized aggression. So they don't even really know what is driving this kind of behavior, but they just need to express the anger that is pent up, and they don't even really understand why or where it's coming from. So children that have anger without any sense of why they're angry, almost always generalized aggression. Also, sometimes if they're angry with you, if you have done anything as a therapist that frustrates them, and I don't mean to say you did anything, meaning you're at fault. I'm just saying if there has been any kind of exchange or circumstance or situation in which the child becomes angry at you, sometimes you set a limit and the child gets angry. Sometimes you have a boundary and they get angry with you. Sometimes you say something that they don't like and they're angry with you. So it's not that you're at fault, but if they become angry with you and they're not able to express it directly to you for fear of the relationship repercussions, they don't feel comfortable discussing it, they're not verbal enough, whatever the scenario is, they will just become aggressive to manifest those feelings. Another option is sometimes they lose control of their emotions because what they're playing out hits that difficult issue, and the feelings that are brought up, they're frustrated by it or they're not prepared for what it's recalling. And so they have to channel that through their aggression. So often play goes deep, and sometimes kids aren't prepared for that. So if they are working on something and it touches on a memory, or it helps them recall something, or it brings up feelings that they weren't ready for, often you'll see aggressive behavior as a result of that. And then finally, sometimes kids just get too stimulated in their play, and that leads to that explosion of feeling. And if they don't have any way to regulate that, it will often explode into aggression. So sometimes when you see a kid ramping and ramping and ramping and ramping, and you can just see that they're just escalating really quickly, they can't put the brakes on. And so the next thing you know, they're aggressively playing because that's the only thing they know to do to channel all of those big feelings that kind of exploded in that scenario from the stimuli. So there are your examples and the why. When we have generalized aggression as a theme and or aggressive victim as a theme. And here's my final thought before we wrap up from this particular discussion about these two themes. I think we have to be very careful when we communicate any aggressive play to parents, that we help them understand how normal it is, how healthy it is, that it is a channel, that it is an outlet. They have to hold all of their feelings in and all of their behavior in, and they have to try to keep themselves regulated in every environment in their life, except the playroom. So when they have all of this stuff that they've been holding on to, they need the appropriate place and the appropriate time to release it. And so it's very important that when we talk about aggressive play with parents, almost always the default is fear, overreaction, worry, concern, apologies. Parents can't handle you talking about their child being aggressive because the connotation is that aggression means violent, that aggression means mean, that aggression means out of control and inappropriate. So we can't just say, oh yes, and one of the other themes that your child is working on is aggression. They're being very aggressive in the playroom. That will not sit well and it will do more harm than good. So we have to be very careful when we discuss this, that we help them understand that it's normal, it's appropriate, and it is a very positive aspect of the play therapy process. So not only are we helping them understand the why behind the why behind the child's play, but we also have to keep in mind parents need to understand that they shouldn't be concerned for it. So just one final thought there, because I've had a lot of therapists that I've trained not really effectively manage parents' concern over aggressive play. And one of my earlier podcast episodes, one of the questions that was asked is, what do I do about aggressive toys? And what do I say to parents that don't want me to have aggressive toys, or they don't want their child to play with aggressive toys? So this is a consistent concern. And we just have to make sure that we're equipped with the appropriate language and the appropriate explanation when we discuss themes with our parents in consultations. So I hope that's helpful. I hope that as we go through more of these themes, you start to recognize them in your sessions and you start to see why we're talking about them, because it makes it easier to recognize them and then obviously communicate. And that's always the goal, that we articulate effectively to everyone in the child's life what's going on, why it's significant, and what they can expect out of it. So if you are interested in coaching with me, I have some training and coaching opportunities. You can go to playtherapynow.com and you can check the training opportunities out there. We are ready to start a new cohort in a couple of weeks. So if you've been thinking about it, or this is news to you, you've never heard me mention this before, go to Play Therapy Now. You can fill out the inquiry form, and our next round of training groups start the first week of June. So hurry up if you've been thinking about it or wondering how that's going to look. I'd be happy to schedule a call with you so that we can chat through the details. I'm so grateful for each and every one of you. Thank you for the emails. Thank you for everything that you do to communicate the value of this, and that you appreciate the podcast. And it's certainly rewarding and fulfilling for me. So I'm grateful for each and every one of you. I hope that you have wonderful play sessions this week, and we'll talk again soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Play Therapy Podcast with Dr. Brenna Hicks. For more episodes and resources, please go to www.playtherapypodcast.com.